Hey everyone, it's Dr. Nam, and today we're going to talk about how to pass that Salesforce Associate exam. Quick review of the test. It's 40 questions. That's down 20 from just about every other test out there. You get 70 minutes to take it. Passing score is 62%. $75 to take it, and retakes are free, which is kind of cool. The prep for the test, I'm going to say just follow the prep guide and you'll be more than prepared to take the test. You can also follow my guide in a minute here to get you the rest of the way. But they cover some great content in these two areas. And it's going to prepare you to take the test, and then hopefully you'll gain that certification. I will also make a note that if you've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for a year or more, most of the things you're going to come across on the test are probably more common sense items. But I would then just kind of skim through everything to make sure you have a good understanding of everything, and then you probably do fine on the test. But to review the test, the first part of the test is the Salesforce ecosystem. This makes up 32% of the test. And it's all different types of things that they're going to cover here. So they're talking about the job roles, career paths, how companies use Salesforce, identifying products like customer, like what is customer 360, do you know sales, service, all those types of things. And then they're just talking about why Salesforce is a in-demand tool and skill set for people to have. Within the Salesforce ecosystem, just remember some of the core values that Salesforce focuses on is trust, customer success, innovation, equality, and sustainability. Within the Trailblazer community, if you need to ask questions, this is a great way to skill up and ask questions and also answer questions for people. You can go to the Trailhead site, you can go to the Trailblazer community, go to the questions section here, and you can look at current questions, old questions, ask questions. You can do that right here. And it's a really cool way to skill up and gain more knowledge and also help out other people who have questions about things. Within the Trailblazer community, you can also go to your Learn tab here, go to Trailhead, check out the different trails, trail mixes, academy, your different career paths, modules and projects. You can watch great recordings from Salesforce here as well. Don't forget about your credentials. This is where you can actually go to register to take this particular certification, but this is also where your super badges and supersets live, so you can go skill up with other great free credentials. And the community, we already talked about the community, an aspect of the feed, which is this right here. You can also join other groups and join other topics. Just a great way to skill up and gain some additional knowledge within there. You can also check out the Salesforce MVPs, any of the quests that are going on, so you can gain special swag, special badges. If you're a company using Trailhead, you can check out Trailhead for Companies. You can talk about sales enablement. You can talk about customer stories. You can install Trail Tracker. This is a way to track the number of badges that people are earning within your org. Some of the things that are going to pop in the test, they're going to ask you, what is an MVP? These are people who basically love Salesforce and love to give back, and they're nominated by their peers, and then they go through that process. Community group leaders, these are people who lead user groups in your area. These are sponsored by Salesforce. There's admin, dev, wit, architects. Other ones are out there as well. You can find your group that's local to you by going to trailblazercommunitygroups.com, and you can see all the different community group leaders out there and what groups that they run, how often they meet, when are they meeting, all that cool stuff. So check out the community group leaders and the community groups. Trailhead, this is where you learn new things. A unit is just the work that you do in a module. A module is a collection of units. A trail is a collection of modules. A trail mix is a collection of modules made by you or others. A playground is where you can do exercises for the units. DevWorks, like a playground, but it's more advanced, and you do need to tie that to your Trailhead count. A lot of times DevWorks get utilized with things like CPQ and Health Cloud, things where additional packages need to be added on, additional products need to be added on that don't come with basic playground access. Some of the roles that you may see in the Salesforce ecosystem, you have your admin, junior admin, developers, architects, your BAs, your business associates, your sales team, your service team, your marketing team, your Salesforce consultants. They're all within those types of areas. They all play roles within the Salesforce ecosystem. And if you're ever wondering about trust, don't forget about trust.salesforce.com. They'll also give you the up-to-date status of what's going on with all the orgs within Salesforce. Something's down, go to here, check it out. They'll tell you something's down, and they'll tell you why it's down. And you can get all the great information here. So trust.salesforce.com is a Salesforce community's homepage for the real-time information on system performance and security. Go there to find out what's going on if something's not working in your org. The next part of the test is navigation. This is how do you move around within Salesforce, and how do you access information. So some of the things you're going to talk about here are common standard objects like account, contact, opportunity, lead. So how do you move from where to where? How do you use the console? How do you use your apps? So you just a quick way of how do you navigate around Salesforce. App Exchange is a place where you can go get pre-built solutions. Some are paid, some are free. It's just a great way to cut down some of the work that needs to be done by going and having find someone else that already did the work for you. You can just add it to your org, and if it's free, it's great. And if it's not, then you have to pay the fee. There are some search settings that you need to know about. You need to know how to customize your search layouts, how to customize your search results, what are synonym groups, how to disable objects from search. That makes things faster, just in case you're wondering why would you ever want to do that. Data load things in off hours, limit fields to search. So if you have every field that's available to search, it can take a longer time. So if you want to limit the fields, you can limit your fields. Just remember, not all fields are searchable. Certain fields, like formula fields, aren't searchable. And then you can also, don't forget about your company settings. This is where you can find information about your company. You can set up your fiscal year. You can show your licenses. This is where you can set up your business hours and holidays. You can go manage your currencies. You can set up your trusted IP ranges. All that stuff can be done in your company information. For list views, every object that has a tab is going to have a list view. I think it was a mini report. You can go in there and you can build and configure your list views how you want. Just remember, it's only going to pull information from that particular object that you're on. You need to set up, you can grant permissions. You can create and manage users. You can add to 10 users at a time if you want to. You can unlock users. You can deactivate users. You can freeze and unfreeze users as well. Freezing prevents a user from logging in. And if you need to build custom objects, these are things that are added onto your org. So Salesforce comes with all those pre-built objects. You can create custom objects. A lot of times they're used to and designed to support a process and gather information. An example of custom object could be a certification object to track the number of certifications you have that you're seeking that you built in your org. Here's a Lightning App Builder. This is where you can build apps, pages, home pages, and record pages. We're currently looking on the record page. This is how you set up, how you visualize things within your org. Before we move on to the next part, please like and subscribe. I do produce Salesforce tips every week and also produce guides like this that you're viewing right now as well. And the next thing we're talking about is the data model, 25% of the test. We're going to talk about those context, leads, and opportunities again and cases. And we're talking about how you see data and how you access data as well. So like I said, we need to know those common objects again, account, contact, opportunity. All these are going to have owners. Typically, you start with a lead, you move over to, when you convert a lead, you create an account and a contact, potentially an opportunity. Then you use your cases as your support process. You can use activities on all these objects to track activity for those particular records. Products, campaigns, campaign members, users, and assets also come into play for a lot of those things as well. If you need to set up a user, you need to set up your profiles and permission sets. Profile basically tells you what a user can do in the system, and you can set your assign tabs. You can create tab. You can assign the record types. You can assign page layouts. You can view the object permissions. You can view the field permissions. You can set up custom permissions. You can set up your login hours, your login IP ranges. You can set all those things up on the profile. And then once you have a profile established, you can also add additional permissions to a user by giving them permission sets. These are an extension of the profile. Users can have many permission sets, but they can only have one profile. They're great for adding one-off permissions like to users like managers. So like if a manager needs additional permissions. This is great for adding one-off things. Like if a manager needs additional permissions, you can create a permission set just for that particular manager, and then you can add them on. A permission set group, this is basically where you take a bunch of permission sets and you put them all in a particular group. So I have a group here called a permission set group. You can add multiple permission sets to that group, and I can send that one group. And then all the people who have that permission set group, we get all the permission sets that are within that group. Just a quick way to assign a bunch of permission sets to a person instead of individually assign them. You can just assign the group and then get everything that's needed. You also have the ability with permission set groups to mute permissions. So I can say if I want to create a permission set group, I add all my permission sets in there, and then I can create the mute permission, and that basically will mute a permission within there. So in this scenario, I could say I want to make sure that they don't have delete on account. So if permission set 1 had delete on the account and I added a muted permission, it would remove the delete portion of the permission set within the permission set group. The mute permission only applies to the group. It does not apply to the profile. It does not apply to any other permission sets that may be applied to it outside of the permission set group. So it only applies within this little square here. Just remember, when it comes to permission sets and permission set groups, it's all cumulative. So it means that you're going to keep adding on things. You can't take away things with permission sets and permission sets on profiles. Permission set groups allow you to take away within the group, but only within that group. So if you take everything at the end, you add it up, that's where it's cumulative. The only area that you can actually take away things are within the actual group itself. Some of the ways you can protect your org is by protecting the access to your org. So you can set up the entry of the org. You can set up passwords. You can set up password policies. You can set in your login access policies. You can set up multi-factor authentication all at this point. You can set up your lockup periods, how many login attempts they have. You can do all these cool things to protect access to your org. You can also set up my domain, just another way for security protection. Within objects, you can have a bunch of different things. Every object that you set up with your profiles and permissions, you have your read, create, edit, and delete, view all, modify all. I tend to say don't grant view all, modify all because they have the ability to extend users' permissions that you may not want to happen. So when we talk about sharing in a minute here, view all, modify all, override all those rules that we're going to set up in a minute here with those types of tools. Within fields, you can set field visibility. Visible means that they can see and edit the field. Read only means they can see the field, but they can't modify it. All right, let's talk about record access. So how do you gain ownership of a record? Typically, if you're the owner or creator of the record, you can gain ownership of the record, and then your profile will dictate whatever you can do with it. So if you can create a record and you're able to edit a record, that means you can modify the record, providing you ownership of that record. You can also delete the records, providing that your profile says that you can use those records. So you need to have the profile permissions to do the things to the records, but then you also have to have the correct ownership of the record to actually do the things that your profile states that. So when it comes to record access, we always start with the org-wide defaults, and then we move over to the role hierarchy, sharing rules, teams and manual sharing, and then we also have this thing where it basically adds everything up. One thing to note, if you have org-wide defaults and you move this up higher, if you think you start with a more public, slope here is a little more, and not as it's a little more flat, and it's not as. Then we do have the ability to add restriction rules. So all these things to come into account. Then we have our restriction rules. The restriction rules, it takes away access to a particular record. So you can say a particular account maybe can't be seen by all users or by certain users. So if they're to gain access to it through one of these other ways, the restriction will come through and wipe out their access to that record to prevent ownership or access to a record that they shouldn't have. So back to our org-wide defaults, we have our sharing settings. They can be private, public read only, public read write transfer. The last one's only for leads and cases. Private means that only the owner can see it and then gets opened up with that model that we just discussed. Public read only means that anyone who can see that object can see all the records. They may not be able to modify them. Public read write means that they can see all the objects. They can modify all the objects, providing that their profile states that they can do those things. If I have a profile that says read only and my by default is public read write, I can see all the records, but I can't modify them because I only have read access. I don't have the ability to modify them with my profile. So you need to have both in order to get everything right. So it's two keys to do the correct thing to that record, providing that you have access to it. Role hierarchy, this is how we can grant access vertically. Typically it's used to grant access and sometimes editability. So in those scenarios where maybe it's a public access and you can see everything, but you want to grant editability rights, you can use a role hierarchy to grant editability rights to those. All standard objects use a role hierarchy. You can also have custom objects added to the role hierarchy as well. You just have to choose that the object's available for the role hierarchy. Sharing rules, this is how we share records with each other. Like the quick way we can set up automated process. There's two ways. There's the criteria and the owner base. Owner base is what we see right here. And it's where if you're the owner of a particular record, and it could be any one of these things, it could be public groups, it could be roles, it could be territories, any of those options, and then you can share it with another public group or role within that area. So I could say I have a public group called sales team, and I want to share it with a public group for my service team. So any of the records that the sales team owns, the service team can see as well. Then we could also set up the default account and contract access, the opportunity access, and the case access if this was like on an account record. And you can specify the level of access of private read only, and read write. So you can say, hey, we want to make sure they can see this, but they can't see this or this other thing in the process of doing so. Criteria based rule works a lot like the owner base, except the criteria, you set up a criteria, you set the criteria here, and then you share it with a group just like you did before. Manual sharing, this is basically manual sharing. Your work defaults need to be either private or read for the button to show to actually manually share a record. Once it's shared, you select the user you want to share it with, and you specify the access that they will receive. Team sharing is just like manual sharing for the most part, except that's only available for accounts, cases, and opportunities. This is where you can build ad hoc teams. You can also set up default team sharing on the user record, so every time they gain access or create an account, their default team gets added to that particular account so that all those members are always going to be added so that they always have the access to the record for that particular user if that's what they want to set up. Occasionally, when you're within Salesforce, you have to create custom fields. Typically, custom fields are used together and aid your user by getting more information, and you can add them on standard and custom objects. Custom fields for your pick list. You can always assign those colors to your pick list fields, and that you can use later on your reports and dashboards. Knowledge is a cool service tool and allows you to place and store information for users and customers. It's a vetted source, so it's accurate. It's a standard response for customers and cases. You can send customers articles. It's easy to search. You can get stats on articles. And then use article types in Classic, and if you're in Lightning, they're knowledge record types. The last section of the test is reports and dashboards. Basically, what are reports? What are dashboards? So what's in a report? You have your type, your time frame, what data, your format. What data do you want your totals for? What are the records you want? So what's the time frame? Then what are the visuals? So do you want to display in the data? So default report types, these are ones that come with Salesforce. Just about all your standard objects are going to have default report types. If you create a new custom object, you can get a default report type made for that too. You can always build your own custom report types if you need as well. And you can build a custom report type by going into your setup, and you can select your primary object, you select your secondary object, and you can also select another object as well. And you can build that relationship. Then you can say with or without, and you can have a little different Venn diagram. So this particular one I left here, it's a very small sample of data that I'm pulling for this. So I want accounts with contacts with events. So this is a very small sample. It's this in the Venn. Whereas on this side, I use this kind of a or statement. I have accounts with or without contacts. So I have all my accounts and also have some of my contacts and some of my events within there. So I can customize my report type how I see fit. When I build a report, I have different types of filters. I can say, show me my accounts or all my accounts. I can specify those types of things. I can specify the date that I want to pull all the records for. And I can also specify any of the fields that are within that object to add for additional logic. And then I can say, hey, I want to equal last name equals B, and maybe with the mailing state equals Wisconsin. And I can do additional filter logic. I can do 1 and 2, or 1 or 2, or 1 and 2, or 3. If I have more criteria, I can add additional criteria there. There's also cross filters on reports, which allow you to say, show me my contacts with accounts on a particular thing, or however they basically, it allows you to just build additional filters and limit the amount of data that's going to be showing on your report. One thing to note, anytime you use the my type of filter, it's going to show a report. So if a report is my accounts, whoever's running the report will see their account. So if Jake makes a report and when he runs it, Jake will see it. But if Sue runs the same report, it's going to show Sue's data. All right, when you're building a report, you can add or remove columns that are relevant to your report. So you can say, I want my last activity account. They all match up here. You can move them around and you can set the order that you want. One little tip: only put the fields you truly need on your report. Otherwise, it just causes things to slow down and takes a little bit longer to run. All right, so you maybe want to write tabular reporters. It's just a report that has no groupings. You can only make a list on the chart for this. You can make a summary report, or allows you to add a grouping. So if you group up here, this is what we create a summary report. This allows for just about most charts. Matrix is where we group on both the X and Y axis. So we get a matrix grid right here. And the last one here is a join report, and allows you to take two report types or more and allows you to put them together. But they do have to share a common object. So in this scenario, we're talking about accounts and talking about cases. The common object is account in this scenario. And if you want to build dashboards, dashboards are representations of all the reports that we just talked about building. You can take a report, put it on a dashboard, and you can show numbers, you can show bar charts, you can show donut charts, you can show all different types of charts depending on the type of data report that you're pulling into your dashboard. Adding a chart, you can first select your report, and then you can select the chart component. So I have leads by source. I'm saying I want to display it this way, but these are all the different ways of displaying your data. And they'll be grayed out if they're not available for that particular report type. One of the last things that you can do with dashboards, you can build dynamic dashboards. So whenever you want to specify who the dashboard should be run as, you can select the dashboard viewer, and it'll be the person who ran the report, and it'll be only what they can see. So typically when you set up dashboards, you're going to set who the running dashboard user is. If you make it as the dashboard viewer, it's going to, every time they run their dashboard, it's going to be whatever that user can see. So it's a way to restrict access to the data and only see what they see. A lot of times the admin or sales manager would be running the report. They're going to be the person who see the data. So it's the way, but if they're clicking to any of those reports, they'll always see what they can see because it's going to be run as the user. Reports are always run as the user. Dashboards are the only thing that could be ran as somebody different. You can see the axis, but they may not be able to do anything with it. On a dashboard, you can also add dashboard filters. Works a lot like reports. They do have to share the same field. So if you build a dashboard, Typically, you want to use the same objects within the dashboard so you can reference the same field, because it's only going to update the components on the dashboard that match the filter. So if I create a field city and none of the reports have the field city on there, it's not going to filter any of those things for me because it's not available. All right, just remember, you can go take this test. You can do it. You can be successful. So go ahead and take it. And I will see you next time. Thanks for coming.